Okay, good morning everyone who's joined us today for the last day of the 5 days of e-learning. We'd like to welcome you today. Today is our last day for these sessions, and big welcome. Just to ask to find out from everyone, just by show of typing a yes or a no. Type yes if you can hear us, type no if you can't hear us. Okay, I'm seeing people can hear us. Great, great. My apologies yesterday for the sound. I think today is much better. Then just to find out by country, just type by, let's see from tuning in this morning from. People from Kenya, Rwanda. Great. Great. See Kenya, Nigeria. Where are my Zambia people? We saw a lot of Zambia people who signed up last night. People from Zambia, great. Nigeria, Kenya, great. Okay, great, great. Seeing Kenya, seeing Nigeria, seeing Uganda. Yesterday we had some people from Uganda. Today we have people from SA. Great, great. Okay, so today is our last day for these 5 days of e-learning. Great, we're seeing people from Uganda, thank you. So today is our last day for the 5 days of e-learning, but it's not the last day of learning. We are working on some great sessions for you next week. We'll be sharing them with you. Today I don't have any presentation, but for me critical is, I'd like us to, from the 4 days that we've ran, as I was thinking them through last night, 2 questions came into my mind, and I decided, let's find out. So I'd like to put a poll here, just to help us see a few things. So it's about KPI and strategy in organizations. So the first question is, which sounds more like your organization? 1, my organization has a KPI library where we select KPI from each year. Or 2, the organization sounds like in my organization, we formulate KPI each year as we do goal setting. We can start taking on the poll just to see how things look like. The choice is 1 and 2. Great. See people starting to take the poll. Great. Great. Then also you can also take question 2 at the same time. The question 2 is, our organization has a strategy that has been translated and aligned organization-wide. Each department has its strategic booklets with all KPIs for the departments. Great. Okay, let's take both questions. I'm saying we're at 23% voted out of 106 people. Okay. Let's continue taking the poll. Okay. So even the panelists will be seeing what we have and how things are looking like. Okay. Only about 50% of participants have taken the poll. The poll is on your screen. Okay, I'll close the poll when we have about 70 people take the poll. If you can't see the poll, possibly open your screen. There's a pop-up with a poll. Great. Okay, I'd like to close this poll now, but then I'll share the results in just one. Okay, let's hit 90 at least, or let's hit 100. So let's have 18 more people take the poll, and then we can see how we're going. Good. Okay. A few more people. If you haven't taken the poll, kindly take the poll. Okay. We're 124 right now. 86 people, 87 people have taken this poll. Okay. 10 more. Six more, and we can close it. Okay. So I'm closing the poll just now. We have about 90, yeah, we're getting there. 97, so 3 more, and then we can close. 2 more, 1 more. 1 more to poll. We're at 99. Great. Okay, we've hit 100. So let me share this poll, the poll results. So from what we've just, the poll we've just done, it looks like organizations formulate KPIs each year around the goal. We don't have KPIs library set out, which when you look at question 2, the response to question 2 is conflicting with the poll question 1, because then if organizations have KPIs listed in their strategy booklets, they're not just using it. You know, we had a question yesterday of how do you formulate KPIs for technical teams, right? So question 1 would be able to assist in that response, that this is predetermined before, not at the goal setting time. You have your strategy. From your strategy, you have departmental strategy booklets, which will have KPIs for all the roles in that department. So today's session is being started off by, we have 2 beautiful ladies and from Kenya, and one gentleman from Nigeria. I think in the next session we need to bring in the beautiful ladies from Nigeria to be the panelists. Yeah, Yemi, we're giving you that assignment. Okay. So let me welcome Lillian to start off this session. Lillian, over to you.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. My name is Lillian Gala, head of HR at Diamond Trust Bank. I have 10 years of experience, actually more than a decade. I will not even talk of 10 years. So, and then maybe I'll also talk about DTB. DTB is a top-tier bank in the region, and we have a branch network across the East African market. What we do basically is just what bankers do. And then maybe just to also emphasize that, yes, when it comes to banking, I think we are leading in the region in terms of customer service and many other facets. So maybe just to dive into my presentation, before I do that, is to demystify this particular topic, whereby we are talking about the future, and the future is right here with us. So the question is then, is it future or is it now? Then I'll talk about now. Again, I'm looking at performance management. Performance management is very, very foundational aspect of HR, because if we don't anchor it properly, then it means that any other facet of HR will not go in accordance with what we're supposed to be delivering for our organization. So we need to get performance management very, very correctly. And that is why we need to start the rethinking of performance management. We need to look at how can we ensure that performance management is actually working for us. So I'll just dive into my presentation, if you allow. I'll share the screen right away. If you can see my screen, maybe just
yes, we can.
you can type a yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is our classroom. Actually, it's not very easy. We are used to having the audience connecting with us, but I think we can still do a good job by connecting with all of us. So I think it's doable. So one more time, the future is now. The future is no longer future. I think by the virtue of what has happened in the world, we have to now look at the now. And then performance management, you're saying, is very, very foundational. As a HR person, we have to look at it differently, because without it, if we don't anchor it properly, then any other facet of HR will not take place in accordance with our expectations. So let's move to the overview. What do I want to share with you at the end of the day? What I want to share with you is, where are we now with the performance management? What are we not doing correctly? And what should we start doing? So where are we? And then secondly, we look at, so what's the problem with the current models? Then thirdly, I look at what are the new performance management trends? And what are the companies that are currently having the right models in place? And I'll talk about the way forward, because having looked at all this, then we need to know what's the way forward. How do we go forward? And then lastly, we need to have an illustration. So that we get to understand what is the look and feel of the performance that you are talking about. So straight away, let's move to where are we now? The current model, you'll agree with me, participants, or rather, ladies and gentlemen, at the moment, what we have is at the end of the year, at the beginning of the year, managers and subordinates will set the goals. Then we have the filling of appraisal forms, which is manually done. We have a situation whereby performance management meetings are conducted at the end of the year. This is the time you'll find leaders sitting, or rather team leaders sitting with their team members to talk about how the year has been, what has not been achieved, what has been achieved. And again, we are saying this is not practical, because how do you get to measure, or how do you get to talk about what a staff did in the month of February, yet you're in December? So that is not very, very practical. Again, where we are now, we are looking at managers giving rankings to staff, or rather scoring and the ratings, and this has to be agreed upon. And most of the time you find that the managers will even try to, or other leaders will try to even make sure that they're within the acceptable distribution, which mostly the distribution is a bell curve. So this bell curve must be achieved through thick and thin. So again, that is the current situation. Where are we now? Lastly, most of the time, these particular models are attached to pay rises, bonuses, and promotions. Good. So having talked about all that in terms of the background, where we are and why we need to have an overhaul, or rather a reset to how we do performance management, we will look at, so what's the problem with all that? So the problem then becomes that if you look at this photo, or rather picture, what are you seeing? Is this a manager or an employee? Please just type your answer. Are you seeing a manager, a frustrated manager, or an employee who's frustrated? Any volunteers? A volunteer? Just type manager, employee.
Yes.
A volunteer. Okay. You don't have a volunteer. So what you're seeing is there's to me, I'm seeing both. Could be an employee, could be a manager. And at the end of the day, then the question is, how do we make sure that we do not have such emotions in the organizations? Because this is somebody who's very frustrated. This is somebody who feels a little bit let down. This is somebody who is even dreading to think of performance management. And these are the faces that we keep having at the end of the quarters, at the end of the year. So therefore, this is the problem. The system is cumbersome. The system is time consuming. The system is expensive, very expensive, because most of the time you find that the trainings that are supposed to be conducted to the actual staff is not, the staff who are trained are not even the ones who are supposed to be trained, because of the misleading facts that we have. Therefore, the expensive bit part of it comes in, because then we are not directing the actual cost to the right people. Subjective. The current system can be very, very subjective, because most of the time you find that the leader's opinion is more or less final. demotivating. Very, very true. Most of the time you find that the staff are not really motivated because of the way the process is being done. And again, I'll talk about the process right now. I think when I started, I talked about rethinking and resetting the PM narrative. Performance management must not be just, it should not be a tool to appraise staff, should not be a tool to start selecting who is supposed to be promoted, who needs to get bonus and all that. Performance management should be a process of ensuring that there's growth, there's development within the organization. Performance management should be very embracive, should embrace each and every person so that we move along, as opposed to having the usual 10% and the 20% stars, then you have the 70% in the middle, and then having the 10% who are always left behind. So I think it's time for us as HR leaders to embrace each and every person in the organization. Let's move together in that as we ensure that productivity and the high performance culture is maintained. So there is a bit of insincerity, again, back to, if you look at the bell curve, most of the time the bell curve will not be the true picture of what is happening on the ground. Therefore, that bell curve pushes managers to just give the ratings for the sake of rating. Then there's intimidation and divisiveness. Because again, we have those who will always be the stars in the organization, then we have those who will always be lagging behind. And then the most shocking slide for me, I think, is the one on numbers don't lie. And for sure, numbers will never lie. This is statistics that was conducted by the Corporate Executive Board, the CEB. And if you look at the numbers, 95% of managers are dissatisfied with the traditional PM system. Yes, 95%. And 90% of head of HRs are also not believing, heads of HR are not also believing that these performance management current and the appraisal systems are working for us. 90%, then we have the 94%, whereby the 94 represent the CEOs who don't believe that actually the systems are effective. So I don't know, maybe if we could have volunteers at this stage, maybe to just share with us experience and their experience, or rather, Martin, I think you can just share with us the poll on maybe why are we still doing what you're doing, the current models? Why are we using the same models if this is the true picture of what is happening? If 90 of us as HR leaders, we are not even believing on this in this system. So why are we still conducting the traditional performance models? So A, is it the way we have always done it before? And B, we don't know what's the best system. Is that the case? And C, is there a modern way to performance management? So just pick if it's A, if it's B, C. Let's see. Why are we still stuck with the old ways of doing performance management? We can conduct it differently.
Okay, I think 70 people have already taken the poll.
Excellent.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Why are we stuck? Can you share with us the results, or we continue?
Yeah, let's. We have 100. Let's hit 120.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, then we can.
Okay, guys.
Okay,
So
15 more people.
Seeing the background of where we are and what is not working for us, having looked at even the CEB's survey, why are we still stuck in the old ways of doing this? Why can't we move forward?
Okay, so there are the results.
Wow. So majority, Martin, you say it's in what?
I think we're all confused.
This is very interesting.
Yeah, 40 people out of 40 out of the participants out of 115 is because it's always the way they've done it. Then 34% is because they don't know if there's a best system. C is there a modern way? So the people still don't know. B and C actually show the same thing. Yeah, it's the same answer as phrased differently. So I could easily add B and C to be one, and that gives us about 70%. 70% don't know whether it's the best system or if there's a better way to do it. Yeah.
70%.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll share with you, Martin, and everybody listening to us, that most of the time when you run such a poll, the answer, or rather the concern, is normally on the A. A is, this is the way we've done it before, meaning people are comfortable with the status quo. But as HR leaders, we need to now challenge the status quo and just ensure that we have the right systems in place. So maybe we can move from there. And having said that, we can now look at the new performance management trends. What should we have in place? So one is focus on outcomes, not activities. Most of the times we focus on activities, we focus on what you've not done and how you're gonna do it. The question is, can we put our focus on the outcome? What do you want to achieve? Two, we are looking at the entity. Focus on the entity, not the individual. Focus on the entity. The entity here is the department, is the organization, not the individual. Therefore, this one will give us a very good stand when it comes to maybe somebody not achieving their targets, as opposed to focusing on the mistakes that were done in the past. We will now focus on where we want to go. And because it's an entity focus. There is the focus on the future, the third one, not the past. If we focus on the future, we are able to meet the goals of the organization, as opposed to focusing on the past, because the past, you cannot change anything in the past. You can only change the future. You can only show a direction for the future. Focus on selection and coaching, not appraisal. Yes, very, very important. Because when you focus on coaching, you are developing, you are nurturing that talent. You are showing them that I care and I value your contribution, as opposed to when you are appraising that person at the end of the year. Make the boss and subordinates jointly accountable. Very, very important, because this is a team. We are working together, we're in this together, as opposed to the moment, I got you. That moment, I got you, has to stop at the end of the year. Check in regularly, very, very important, because you're saying, why would you wait for a whole year, 12 months or 6 months to sit down with your staff, or rather your employees, to take them through their performance? Can this be done on a frequent manner? Can we have conversations? Actually, the new trend is just about conversation. It's just about making sure everybody is aware of what is expected of them, and we are working together, and we frequent conversations ongoing throughout. So those are the check-ins. Check-ins is basically just the meetings, but now in a softer manner. Because when you talk of meetings, people think of a very serious formal conversations. Check-ins regularly will be very important. Using guided conversations, very, very important, as opposed to those many forms that we get to fill at the end of the year. We need to look at it differently and replace that with conversations. Using of technology to generate data. Can we have a system that is linked to our internal processes? So then you're able to mine data, and as you do that, you're able to have real conversations, because you have supporting documents, or you have supporting information that you can correct or follow through. Keep it simple. Keep it simple, very, very important, not so complex. Work hard on making it fair. Fairness is the very, very important. Then we can now move to the next slide, which is which companies have dumped the traditional model, the traditional performance management model? Have you looked at the new PM trends, the new performance management trend? Do you have companies that are currently leading the pack? Yes, very, very many. And this is just an example, actually. We have IBM, we have the Deloitte, we have Accenture, and all that you're seeing. So next time, my challenge to you, HR leaders, is can we have your companies as well listed in this list of companies that have already acquired the new model of performance management system? So the question then, how are they doing this? How are they achieving this? Which again, I'll share with you in my next slide. So on the way forward is, have we talked about the background? We've looked at what is not working, what is working for us. And therefore we need to now look at the way forward. How do we move from here? Now that we are aware that actually 90% of us are not comfortable with the current systems. 94% of the CEOs globally are having the same conversation around performance management. Then what is the way forward? Very, very important. So the way forward here is we need to automate the systems. Again, if you look at our workplaces, we have 4 generations working for us at the moment. This is the first time in history whereby 4 generations are working together. Therefore, we need to embrace the millennials. The only way they communicate, the only way they know is digitization and all that. So then we make sure that we have the right tools for this particular group, but not just for them, even for the older generation, meaning that automation is very key as opposed to having heaps and heaps of papers. But besides that also, automation brings a lot of efficiency. I think my colleagues I mentioned this widely for the past 2-3 days about the need for automation. So I'm not going to dwell on that. Secondly is on regular check-ins. Very, very important. We are saying, let's have conversations with staff. Let's get to uplift each other. Let's inspire the culture of high performance. And you can only do this by having regular check-ins, by having regular conversations. Very, very important. Don't wait for a whole 4 months or 3 months or 6 months to sit down as staff to have those conversations. Have them informally. Just let them know this is the direction, this is what we are doing. So those, and also you learn a lot from your staff when you have regular check-ins. The regular check-ins could be on a weekly basis, can be on a monthly basis, again, depending on the nature of your business model, because what works for another organization might not work for the other, but as long as you have the basics is what you're looking at. The fundamentals of the new PM system is very, very important. So can you first understand the fundamentals? Then we can now tailor-make them to suit our business needs in our organizations. Crowdsourcing, very, very important. We are saying crowdsourcing is whereby, as opposed to having the manager and the staff conducting these review systems, can we ensure that your system incorporates each and every person in the organization? Meaning, for instance, team A and team B. So we have maybe IT team and HR teams. Those are teams that work very, very closely. They depend on each other. Therefore, they need also to review one another. As we do that, then it's not, the system will not be subjective, because it means the whole organization has participated in an individual's performance. So crowdsourcing is very, very important. Let's not leave this to manager and the staff alone. Again, as HR leaders, let's endorse the feed forward instead of feedback. Feedback can be very demoralizing, because most of the time feedback will dwell on the past. Feedback will dwell on the mistakes that I've done and have not achieved. Can we focus on the feed forward? So the feed forward is actually just feedback, but in a way of looking in the future. We are talking of what is the direction, how are we going there, how are we going to achieve that, what is the target, and what do I need to do as a leader to ensure that you as my staff, you are excelling? What is my role as a leader in that person's deliverable? Because for him to deliver or for her to deliver, I need to support her. I need to put a few things in place. So what are these? Let's work together. Let's have the feed forward as opposed to feedback. 1 minute manager principle, very, very important, because you're saying at the end of the day, as much as we are setting expectations, are they clear? Are they brief? So there's a setting of expectations that should be very, very clear, should be very, very brief, and then we'll have the praise. At the same time, you need to, as you're giving that expectation to the staff, also there's something that they're doing that is so correctly, that is so adding value to your department, adding value to the organization. What is that impact? Mention to that staff. That impact or that contribution, let them know, praise them. And as you praise them again, if there's anything that you maybe that she or he is not doing properly, that is a time also to just give constructive criticism. As you are giving constructive criticism, it's about that particular need that was not met, that particular deliverable that was not met. It's not about the person. It's not about Jane or John. It is more of that particular unmet target. So let's be very, very brief, the 1 minute manager principle. Let's be clear. Let's, it's about clarity and just setting the tone. Embrace a coaching approach, very, very important. I think that ties into my what I've talked about. The coaching approach is you being a coach. You being a coach. Let's not be managers, because managing people is not the easiest thing to do. Let's be coaches. Let's work with everyone. Let's show the way. Let's dive in it. Let's be part of the team. Second last, I'll talk about let's generate data that can support, the real data that can support conversations. The moment you have all your data in place, you'll be able to have very constructive conversations, very supportive conversations, because everything is in black and white. So how do we make sure that our internal systems are linked to the PM is very, very important. If it's your LMS, learning and development management system, how is it linked to your performance management? If it's your recruitment, everything, can we link all that together? Then you're able to generate the system, more data. If you have your internal system, like for bankers, we have an internal system. So how do we generate all that data to make sure that we can support the conversations? Lastly, and the most difficult conversation that I think I'll leave it to all of us as our homework, is how do we separate performance management from the reward system, or the bonuses and the pay increment. So this is not the easiest, but it's doable. It's doable because when we're having the conversation with staff, can we talk about their career development? Can we talk about the deliverables? Can we talk about how do we make sure that the organization is moving from whatever space we are in to the high performance culture? How do we increase the productivity? How do we ensure growth and development is achieved, as opposed to talking about the monetary value that is attached to it? Let's leave those conversations for another day, for another time, but not when we are pushing the agenda of performance. So yes, we can separate those conversations from time to time. It's doable. I think it's just a mindset, like I began, it's more of mindset change. It's more of us embracing the need to do it differently. Yes, we are conducting performance appraisal management, but we can do it slightly different in a manner of how we are managing the whole process. It's about just retweaking the process. It's about having more conversations, more positive conversations, as opposed to waiting for a tool to be used or to be deployed at the end of 6 months. That tool put aside to be used at the end of the year, so that we can say, we have this budget, this much, and we want to pay this much bonuses, and therefore I can only use this tool to get this number of people to fit into my budget. No, I think we can change our mindset slightly different and look at it as a process that should enable growth and development within the organization. Okay, so having said that, I'll now maybe just move it to my slides in terms of an illustration. It is not the perfect one, but at least it will give you an idea of what we can develop, or what we can come up with if we are so minded to do so. Let's see. So first and foremost, if you can look at the previous slides, what you've talked about is we should be simple. We should keep it simple. We should also, again, a very maybe I can come back to that later. If you look at the slide that is there right now, is departmental check-ins. It's about the entity. It's about teams. So ensure that when you are setting your objectives, you have the bigger overview. You have the team or the departmental deliverables at hand. That is one, because at the end of the day, you don't want to come up with anything that is not reflecting your team's performance, that is not reflecting your team's targets. So what will happen is have that in place, and then make sure you have both hard and soft, because you're saying soft is very, very key. Actually, soft is now the new hard. I think you've heard of that. Soft is now the new hard. And then also look at how do we stop this, how do we do away or ban the 1 to 5 rating, the 0.5 rating? How do we ensure that we don't have the alphabetical orders anymore? Because those things really are very subjective. So if you look at the companies that have already gone ahead with all these, the new systems, these are the kind of items that, or rather the templates that they're using. So yes, this is just to give an illustration, but we are not saying that it has to be like this. It can be something different, but slightly more or less something that can give you that way forward. So you'll have the departmental check-ins. The check-ins can be done on a monthly basis with your department. This is not an individual, or it can be a weekly process, depending on your business model, depending on how you operate in terms of, because again, what works for another organization might not be that, but as long as we have frequent conversations. So good. If you look at the colors, I'm sure you're asking yourself, what is the colors all about? So the green will replace our usual 5. The light green will replace our usual 4s. Then the red will replace our usual 1s. So those are the things. So I'll also talk about that in the next slide. Then we have the individual check-in. Out of the departmental, you'll derive the individuals. The individual check-ins now is the one-on-one, you and the staff. So first, we've had a meeting with our department. We've agreed on our deliverables. We are now going to the individual check-in. We are having conversations. Before we put them down, we're gonna agree on our individual targets. This is one-on-one, you and the staff. Again, it is separated into 2. It's segmented into 2 forms. We have the hard and the soft bit. We can move now to the feedback to the team. Very, very important, because we are saying, if you look at the crowdsourcing, I'd mentioned earlier on the crowdsourcing. Crowdsourcing, we say it is just making sure that we get feedback from other teams that we work with, because we are dependent on on one another in terms of our operations within the organization. The last thing you want is people being the obstacles on the ways of others. So therefore, feedback to the team is very important. So if you look at maybe, for instance, finance, this is a feedback to the team. So feedback, for finance will be giving feedback to ICT department. So the team, the first question would be maybe on how are we responsive? Are we helpful? Are we quickly and timely? Again, if you look at these questions, they are more or less on the softer part. They're not looking at the hard targets. Because you're saying, if you get the soft right, since soft is a new hard, once you get the soft skills right, the rest will just fall in place. So it's important that you work on this. And again, check on your values of your organizations, because the moment you know how to fit in your values, then the soft questions will be very straightforward. So you can look at, do we work to a high standard? Are we pleasurable to deal with? By doing all these, you are changing the mindsets of the staff, because you're telling them it's not about you, the individual, it's about the organization. Did we meet and support the organization's strategic objectives? This one now comes in because at the end of the day, it is about the bigger entity. At the overall ratings, instead of us talking on the week about the weaknesses and the strength, can we now start talking about keep doing this? What do you like about that team? What is that team doing so well that you'll want them to keep doing? And what can they do better? This is now the weaknesses. Can we change our narratives? Can we change our vocabularies? So then everybody feel part and parcel and in the same boat in terms of where the organization is headed to.
Okay.
And
Lillian,
lastly, yes?
Lillian, 2 minutes to wind up.
Good. Perfect. Good. Thank you for that. So I think I'll just jump that. I'll go to the ratings. Good. So again, on the ratings, I think it's very important, like I mentioned before, let's replace the colors with the skills. So what we can do is maybe you can talk of green being your exceptional and exemplary for performance, light green being there are some improvements to be done, and so forth and so on. So this one I think will come in, it is us to decide what you want to work with. The soft target, we will talk about the ethos. What do you want to see in that team? Like for instance, do we have a strong team spirit? Do we work together? Very, very important questions. And again, as I wind up, maybe I can just tell you that as we are now thinking of, as you're thinking of how to make it better in terms of how do we move to where we are supposed to be, as opposed to being in these mechanistic, bureaucratic processes, as we are still struggling with that, let's be sure, and I can guarantee you that there's some organizations that are already having apps, the mobile apps, where their staff will just log in and rate themselves. And this is one of McKinsey's report, just showcasing on where people are at the moment. The performance management are now in on mobile apps, and they can be developed for our staff. But again, there's no one size fits all. I think it depends with what we want and what works for organizations because if you're to look at our business models, if you're to look at our strategies and all that, then we'll be guided accordingly. My parting shot to all of us today is that perfection is the enemy of the progress. Let's just get started. Where we are, whatever we have, let's get started, because if you're waiting for us to be perfect, if you're waiting for that perfect moment, it will never happen. But let's get started with wherever we are, and the rest we can build on as we move along. We can always make it better as we move along. Thank you so much for listening, and let's connect, let's stay connected. Thank you for listening. Okay. Over to you, Catherine. Over to you, Catherine.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Kenya. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Uganda. Good morning, Zambia, and everybody else who's logged in. My name is Catherine Wekesa, and I am a certified trainer. I am also a performance consultant. And shortly, I will share with you my slides. I'm waiting for Lillian to unshare hers, and then we can continue with our session. My focus today mainly, Lillian has touched a lot on, performance management as a whole. So I'm going to focus on the employee side of it, what they need to do. What do they need?
Kate, you can share.
Okay. All right. Okay, so as I had said, my name is, I've done the introduction. My name is Catherine Wekesa. I have 17 years of experience in HR, in consultancy in HR, and I have 14 years of experience as an L&D, and I have 14 years as an operations person. So my experience is, yeah, a little bit, quite a lot. Now, I want us to go through, technology seems to be not siding with me today. Just hold on a bit as I work on the presentation itself. But mainly what I'm focusing on today is, as I'd said earlier, that I'm focusing on, I'm purely focusing on employees and what they need to do during this time. Now, I think we are able to, now it's responding. Okay, sorry for that. We're going to do a very rush session, so bear with me, just fasten your seatbelts, but you will get the content, so don't worry. We'll be looking at, I'll be able to walk you through such that you can be able to pick aspects that you can actually help your employees in terms of improving performance, in terms of when they're working remotely. And my agenda today, they are it's a three-prong agenda. One is WWHW, which stands for why, what, how, and what if. And then we have what employees should expect while they're working remotely, and key things they need to remember. Now, Martin, let's share the first poll. I want us to look at what is projecting in front of you. There is a red square, there is a blue triangle, there is a yellow circle, and a green squiggle. Kindly look at it, close your eyes for about 3 seconds, and then when you open, what are you drawn towards within those four things that are drawn in front of you? So let's take the poll. A will be the red square, B will be the blue triangle, C will be the yellow circle, D will be the green squiggle.
So as everyone takes on this poll, we're seeing the total is going past 100, but this is a guide to what's the current situation on the ground. So we're not much more a lot focused on what's the total, just to give us a direction. So just on this, okay, we have 100 people have just taken the poll. We'll run it for 1 minute and 30 minutes.
All right, I can see others responding on the chat. If you can possibly respond on the poll that is showing on your screen.
Okay, we have 120 people who have taken the poll. If possible, if you, the chat would be, if you can't see it, it's hidden somewhere on your screen, because then but also chat would help just see. But the best would be to vote on the poll itself. Okay, so I think we have 140 people who have taken the poll. Catherine, we can close?
Yes, we can close the poll now.
Okay, let me close and then let me share the results.
Okay, let's look at the results. Before we even look at the results, let me explain something that you see people are very different in terms of how they think, how they look, how they see things. Now the red square actually is for people who are actually focused or who are inclined to be organizers and perfectionists. Just bear in mind what Lillian said as her parting shot. But it's not we won't kill you for that. Then the blue triangle is for leaders and deciders who are inclined to that. And then the yellow circle is for people who are inclined to listening and problem solving. And then the squiggle is for those who are creative and inventors who are concerned with possibilities. Now, when we look at our poll, we find that in terms of the red square, we have 30%. So we have organizers who are 30% within us. And we have leaders who are about 14%. We have listeners who are about 27 and 34% being those who are creative. Now, that is the same way how employees are in the workplace. And we have to always remember that people are absolutely different. People look at things very differently. People will consider things differently, and people will work differently. As we think about that, working remotely, this is what I want people to remember, to focus on, to think about. That looking at the agenda that we have, we had the why, the what, the how, and the what if. Let's focus on why must you be productive when everything else seems to be grinding at a halt right now. And then on the what, we are focusing on what do I need to do in order to keep my performance at the top with all the things going on. And then we need to also focus on how should I actually go about keeping my performance at the top of the game. And lastly, we'll be looking at what if I do this, what are the next steps? And then what if this is the new normal post-COVID, meaning this will be the now as we are seeing it. Now, let's dig deeper into this. Because we don't know when this will flatline, whether a vaccine is found, because yesterday I don't know whether you're able to see in the news that UK is actually doing human testing starting today, or there's a herd immunity that is found. We don't know when. So meaning, because you don't know when, as an employee, you need to adapt and incorporate changes that are going on. And as you're doing that, you need to work as if, not that as if, but just that the work has changed the trajectory, but you're still doing the same work that you're doing. Now, as you're doing the work that you're doing, what you need to understand is that there are some things you'll be able to do from where you're working remotely, and some you may not be able to do, meaning some of the things need to be done in the office. And as you're doing that, please remember that you have a role as an employee, and your role is very key in performance management. Let's look at the what. Lillian mentioned a lot of, she talked of check-ins. She talked of making sure that you do check-ins. And from when she was describing it from the perspective of the employer, or you as the manager, you as the line manager, you as the HR, and whoever is supervising. Right now, I want you to focus it on the other way. You as the employee, don't wait for your supervisor to do the check-in. You be the one to force the check-in. Be the one to initiate the check-in. Now, working remotely, what it calls for is soft skills will become very key. You're working with people who are in different places. You are not seeing them, but these soft skills are very specific. These soft skills will be the communication, active listening, adaptability, calmness. Things are a bit rocky right now. Empathy of your colleagues, having patience because people learn at different levels and understand this technology or systems or everything else at a different level. And lastly, being positive about what is happening. And as you're doing that, please focus on quality and not quantity. And as you're focusing on quality and not quantity, another thing, collaboration and teamwork becomes very key for you to achieve what you need to achieve in terms of your performance in the workplace. Now, as you're doing that, again, feed forward comes in. You need to focus on feed forward. What we are saying is that you do not disregard the feedback. As it was said earlier, feedback gives historical data. That is historical happenings, historical activities. Be cognizant of that, take learnings from that, but where does your focus lie on feed forward? What is it that you're doing now that you're doing right? And then what is it that you need to stop doing? And what is it that you need to keep doing in future? So those are the things that you need to focus on, as well as now, when you're focusing on all that, when you're looking at all that, how are you going to do this? Expectations may change. Remember, with whatever that is happening right now, organizations might have to change, either to look at strategies. Remember what Agnes and Charles mentioned last week, that some organizations will need to relook at their strategy, rework it. If you're reworking your strategy, again, expectations, things will need to change. Some things will actually change. If your organization is not reworking on your strategy, it is incumbent in you that you as the employee, sit with your line manager, sit with your supervisor, look at the expectation. Now that I'm working remotely, now that I'm starting to work remotely, these were my KPIs when we had set them beginning of the year, if that was how your performance management system, when the cycle starts. So you look at it that this is what we had set, but this is what is happening right now. Can we rework the expectations such that we are still able to achieve what we need to achieve at the end of the day? As you're working on your expectations, look at the tasks that you're actually doing now to be able to achieve those individual objectives that you have been given. As you're looking at them, make sure that you deliver on those tasks that you have, such that at the end of the day, you are able to actually achieve what you are supposed to achieve. And then make sure, remember again, it was mentioned earlier, schedule regular one-on-ones. Those one-on-ones in terms of you're having a one-on-one with, leave alone just the check-in. The check-in is, I can actually quickly talk to Yemi or talk to Martin or talk to Lina and say, by the way, Lilian, today, this and this and this is going on. That's just a check-in. But then a regular one-on-one, I can now set it with, schedule a regular one at the end of every week and say, let's recap on, this is what we had done, that's the feedback. But then the feed forward, we are looking at next week, this is what we are looking at, this is what we need to continue. So you make sure that you schedule those one-on-ones. You as the employee, don't sit and wait for your line manager or your supervisor to set it up for you. Be proactive. And as you're doing that, we have mentioned the feed forward, which has actually also been mentioned earlier. And then you constantly give status updates. Don't wait to be asked for those updates. Please be proactive in everything that you do. Now, as you're being proactive, remember that people have different learning curves. There's technology to learn. There's distraction happening at home or remotely where you're working. Now, with whatever is happening, people are trying to cope with wherever they are. So make sure that you trust when your colleague tells you that they're working on something. Trust what they are saying, that they are working on, whatever they have said. But as well as you're trusting them, not just blind trusting them, you trust them as well because they have earned it, they've delivered. And also you deliver on your bit. Because right now we are all working from different locations. We are not co-located. So trust becomes a very, very big thing in terms of working remotely. And then remember, be proactive in terms of reach out to co-workers, leaders, and even the clients. Don't wait for them to always be the ones who keep calling you every now and then. And as you're working on making sure that you achieve those tasks that you have, use the Pomodoro technique. This is how it happened. This is how the whole Pomodoro is. For every task that you have, take 25 minutes working on that task. After 25 minutes, take a break of 5 minutes. Wake up, walk around, come back again and continue working. The minute you finish that task, so for every 25 minutes you get up. The minute you finish working on that task, get up, work for 30 minutes or take a break for 30 minutes and then come back and start a new task. That's the Pomodoro technique for making sure that you accomplish your tasks at home. Some organizations have come up with an additional way, again, adding on the Pomodoro. What they do is, because in the office there used to be the 10 o'clock coffee or tea break, so every day at 10 o'clock, everybody logs in with their coffee, tea, or water, choice of drink that they have, and then it's a chit chat. Just the way people would stand by the water coolers and have a chit chat. And that's it for 30 minutes, and then everybody else can go through it. So nobody puts in, nobody schedules a meeting at that particular time for the online coffee breaks. It's also a way of mentally, you know, when you see everybody else that you used to see physically in the office, you stop feeling isolated and you connect with them. And then make sure that you meet your deliverables and timelines. This is very, very key. When it comes to working remotely, this becomes very, very important, meeting deliverables and timelines and focusing on quality and not quantity. And as you're doing this, remember that unity is strength. So when all of you work together, there's teamwork, there's collaboration, wonderful things happen. That's a saying by Marty Stepnaki. Now, wow, that guy is moving very fast. But let's see, the what if section. So what if remote working will be your new normal? What if that is what your organization decides after this, or even from now, that this is what will be? This is now thinking on the far end. But before we get there, what do you need to do? You need to start looking at things in terms of they have already changed and there's no going back. So you make sure you focus on what you actually need to do and you achieve what you need to achieve that is set for that time. And you make sure that your technical skills that you have, that you're constantly making sure that you work on your competence and everything else. And at the same time, the new soft skills that I mentioned earlier, the communication skills, the active listening, the adaptability, calmness, empathy, patience for your colleagues in terms of them learning and being positive comes into play. And then learn to manage, let's just call it what it is. People are learning differently in terms of working with the technology, working from home and everything else. Some of our managers have caught up. Some of our managers have not caught up with what is happening. So what happens, you'll find some managers will call you after every 30 minutes to know if you're working on what you need to work on. And at the same time, they will ask you, what time are you delivering a certain document? What time will you be done with a certain task? Now, that is why even from earlier, I kept saying or mentioning that you need to be very, very proactive, do the check-ins yourself, don't wait for your manager to do the check-ins and all that. When you're doing this, you're managing up such that it comes to a point that your manager or your supervisor trusts you that you'll deliver what you'll deliver, and they ease up on micromanagement as they themselves, they're also learning that how to manage remotely is largely also dependent on deliverables, setting deliverables and having timelines and people delivering based on that. Then you deliverables and timelines have to be realized. That is the key thing that you need to remember, that now that is what you need to do in terms of making sure that you play your part as an employee to achieve what you are set to achieve. Then, what if you have done all this? What is the next step? You deliver quality over quantity. Don't do so many tasks that at the end of the day, you check off and you say you have done 10 tasks today. That is not what is called for right now. Right now, what is called for is quality over quantity. Deliver quality work. Constant communication with your team, your manager, the people you collaborate with, and your clients. That is very, very, very key. And then you meet the deadlines and deliver on deliverables and help others along the way. Remember, teamwork and collaboration is very, very key right now. It helps you, collaboration helps you all achieve what needs to achieve, and teamwork helps you achieve the projects that are there. So make sure that you help others along the way so that you achieve exactly what the organization needs to achieve. So what employees should expect during this time working remotely? Recalibration of performance markers will be very key. In terms of every organization will be looking back at where they are right now, how this COVID-19 has impacted their business environment and everything else around them, if their strategy would still work, meaning at some point, the KPIs might, your manager or the top management might actually sit down to decide what is the next step forward for the organization. As they're doing that, that means they will be recalibrating your KPIs. So expect that to happen. Be open in terms of that will come. And then there will be increased application of analytics in performance management. Believe you me, because now we are working remotely, we are working online technology, even though we are having challenges here and there, but there's simple technologies that will be helping, that are helping us in terms of managing our performance. So analytics data will be drawn from various places. And apart from this, also data will be picked from even other tools. You'll find that even in terms of performance management, some tools from supply chain, some tools from from accounts can be retooled to actually give you analytics that would give you data that you need for performance management. So there'll be an increased application of analytics in performance management. And there'll be increased agility in performance management. Remember earlier, Lilian mentioned that we need to stop thinking the traditional performance management. That is what she was talking about. There needs to be agility in performance management. We need to think outside the box. We need to be flexible to change with the change that is happening right now. And I will not dig deeper into that, but because she actually covered quite a lot in terms of how our mindsets need to change. Now, there will be increased autonomy with accountability. Remember, you'll be working remotely. As you're working remotely, there'll be high accountability that will be called upon from you. Results will be key. Actions will be key. Even though nobody is hovering over your shoulder to see whether you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, but results, there'll be no question about whether you're delivering on the results. And then as this happens, that expect that there will be advantages and disadvantages depending on each and every person's circumstances where they are if you're working remotely. Remember, some family settings, you might have either grown-up children or small children who will call for your attention. You may not have working space, or you might have a working space. So there might be advantages and disadvantages. So be cognizant of that as it happens. And as you're cognizant of that, remember again, in that same process, there might be miscommunication going on in terms of as you're working. So with that miscommunication, there might be conflict. Remember when I said in terms of soft skills, You need to have empathy, you need to have calmness, you need to have patience and adaptability. They would come in very key at this point. Now, as we wind up, let's look at the key things to remember as an employee in terms of helping you through performance management. Seek for feed forward. Be sure you'll get the feedback. That won't be very, very 1,000%, not even 100%, you'll get the feedback. But seek for feed forward. Deliver quality and not quantity. Then create a schedule. And work on soft skills, the soft skills that I mentioned that I think I've been singing and singing. Please, people, don't call me soft skills after this. And ask for help when you need it. And if your colleague asks for help, please give it to them. And with great autonomy comes great accountability. Always remember that. Always, always remember that. And tip number 7 is open. I am being, or even you, wherever you are, be open to changes that are coming. That you will experience a lot of changes, and be open and expect those changes. And as I part, I want to leave you with this. You cannot enslave a mind that knows itself, that values itself, that understands itself. Understand yourself, understand the value you have by understanding what you need to deliver, and deliver that, and you become of value. Thank you for listening to me, and we'll take questions at the end of it. Yemi, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so I'm going to be racing to the finish line now. After Catherine has be more around performance, but from the organization perspective, because we need to have a balanced view to performance. We've been talking a bit about the employee and the individual in the organization, but in terms of performance, and given the crisis situation right now, what exactly should organizations be doing? Okay, so as the form of introduction, my name is Yemi Fausen, and I've been in the business of HR for about 21 years, 21, 22 now, though I moved from sales into marketing and then into HR. So if you just give me a few seconds to quickly share my screen. And yeah, I will be talking about organizational performance and business continuity, given the, can we see my screen?
Yes. Yemi, you can maximize it so that we can be able to see presentation style.
Sure, I have maximized the screen now. Can you see it?
Okay. Good, I think people are saying they can see yes.
Just give me a yes if you can see the screen. Give me a yes. Hi, Martin, can you see my screen?
Yes, seeing the yeses are there.
Okay, okay. Yes. So good. Let me continue. So it's going to be organizational performance and business continuity given the COVID-19 situation. And like I said, Lillian and Catherine, they've largely concentrated on the individual and how we should ensure performance given the crisis situation we have right now. But really, who's looking after the organization? Who's talking about the organization? So my presentation is bringing a kind of balance to the situation. Martin, if you can just run the first poll quickly so that we can see where individuals feel that the organizations are right now.
Okay.
Yeah, Martin, are you coming up with the poll? Okay. Yes. Okay. So the question I'm asking is, at what phase is your organization currently at now? Are we at crisis situation or are we moved into recovery? If we can quickly just give answers to that. Are we still in crisis or has the organization started the recovery journey?
Okay, I think we can close at 1 minute. Oh, quite a number. We have 120 people who have taken the poll so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see what the results
Okay,
is
let me
looking like
close
so
the.
that we can move on. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Wow. So 61% says crisis and 39% says recovery. I mean, not too bad. 60-40 sort of ratio. Okay. So let's see. As we move on quickly, let's see what organizations need to be doing right now during a crisis situation as they move on quickly to recovery. So now, what do I think should change? And when I say change drastically too, given the situation we are now, the first thing that should change is the mindset. We need to start moving away from crisis to recovery. We are not going to sit as organizations, we are not going to sit in this crisis mode forever. We've been in this now for a couple of weeks, and we should have taken some lessons learned and try to look forward to the future. So we need to respond from the situation of unpredictability to a recovery mode where we think at least in the interim, things will be like normal, at least in the interim. We need to change our focus from inward looking at the organization, what's working, what's not working, what do I need to do? We need to start looking at the market now. We need to stop looking at the mirror and start looking at the window. What is the market saying? What is going to be the destination from a stakeholder perspective? What will the stakeholders be expecting from us? What is the market saying? We need to start moving gradually from a response situation of crisis management to program management. And that will be a set of new skills, new ideas, new possibilities that will move us to recovery mode. We need to stop planning for just contingency and start looking at scenarios. Worst case scenario, best case scenario, what's going to be the outcome of all of this for the organization. And lastly, we also need to start changing our attitude. Let's stop reacting. Now let's start reinventing. Things have changed. I know this rain that has fallen, unfortunately, it has fallen on everybody at the same time. So there is no need, there is no time for anybody to sit in the space of excuses as an organization. We need to start moving towards reinventing the organization. Things are not going to be the same. What are the business focus areas that I see from this continuity planning perspective? The business itself, crisis management and response. What does the business need to do right now? What does leadership need to concentrate on in the organization? This is not as a sustainable approach to organizational recovery. Yes, it sits in that mode. However, we need to quickly establish a crisis command center. If we don't have one by now, it's probably almost a bit late, but we should have established a crisis command center, which is to manage all the logistic and strategic challenges that will have come up. Information is key, data is key, and we're not providing data only to senior leadership in the organization. Information about the organization should be for every employee. So we are challenging leaders in the organization. Please do not keep information to just executive, senior management, senior leadership team, EXCO, ELCO, whatever it is. Information should trickle down into the organization so that we can let people know what's going on, and we will be surprised the kind of ideas and solutions and innovation that will come from employees. It will be the role of the crisis management team to ensure all stakeholders are informed about decisions. And in this instance, stakeholders will not be just shareholders. It will not just be employees. The situation we find ourselves in now suggests that we need to move one step forward to speak to our suppliers as well as our customers. They need to be informed about what's going on about the business. Like I said, the command center should already be in place. And from time to time, we need to assess the pain points and also do a kind of adjustment as we go ahead and see so many learning points. Now, that's about the workforce. About the workforce, well, are we going to have everybody in the business right now performing at the same level optimally? Are we going to have individuals who are performing optimally, some not optimally? Are we going to have laggards, people who are just carrying along? This is the time to define critical clusters for the workforce. This is the time to establish, for instance, what activity can still operate during crises, which employees do we need to be at work to support us, even if remotely, and what sort of skills do we need in the crisis situation and post-crisis. We are not going to wait until after the pandemic to start looking at, okay, the new workforce, the new skill. This is the time to start looking at defining our critical clusters for business survival at this point, and also for business survival post-pandemic. And once we've identified those skill gaps, it's not just enough for us to put them somewhere and have conversations. We can quickly start bridging those gaps and make sure that we upskill the critical clusters of our employees to support the business now and be ready to support the business going forward. There have been so many conversations around layoffs, around salary cuts. That's the reality, guys. Like I said, I'm speaking now from a business perspective largely. Businesses have taken a hit. We cannot run away from that fact. Businesses are in certain dire situations right now. So there's certain economic considerations to ponder about. Layoffs, termination, salary cuts. But what the business needs to do from a business continuity perspective is to see the real challenges and also make sure the actions are speaking to the realities on ground. I, for one, do not believe that layoffs should be the first recourse. There's so many other things that we can do quickly to stabilize the business or adjust to the new realities. For instance, which cost areas can we do without now? Which cost areas, for instance, can we say can wait till after the crisis is over? Let businesses be realistic about how to deal with the economic situations and not go straight to terminations as the first recourse. Workforce modeling will help businesses to assess the options. And so many governments in so many continents and areas and countries are looking at opportunities to help businesses to survive. Tax, government palliatives, etc. Also, it is a time for business to see all those opportunities and see what we can do to help the business during the crisis situation and again after the crisis situation. What is available from the government? Now, for business operations, culture is going to be very, very important. Somebody said to me in a conversation that how we treat our critical resource, our people at this time, will determine what talent will stay with the organization post-pandemic. And that's the reality. So we need to preach the resilient culture at this time. Organizations should continue to execute work in a collaborative manner. I mean, everybody is working from home, from remote areas, from the farm, from anywhere, and we're still getting things done because we are collaborating. We need to emphasize more on that culture and say, hey guys, wherever we are still one unit, one family, one organization, and we need to go through this together. Now, the shift has moved from a workplace situation to an ecosystem. The organization itself has become an ecosystem. And we need to leverage on social vehicles of collaboration to make sure that employees can still have access to data, information, work tools, etc., so that we can go through this period together. And if there was a time for the organization to be agile, to be elastic, this is the time. We need to build a human plus machine workforce. And I'm not saying machine from strictly a robot perspective. Even if it's communication, even if it's anything that will make transactional processes continue, this is the time to make sure that the organization is focusing on that. proactive ops to reduce the stress on the operations of the business. And this is the time also for organizations to move from, I said that we had a wave of employee satisfaction. We moved to employee engagement. Now it's employee experience. But now, I think what's going to be more important to get through this phase will be the human experience that organizations bring to the workforce. Do not forget the human experience. Tax and trade, the stimulus packages all around countries and organizations. What can we do to take advantage of such? For some companies, maybe they operate in different jurisdictions, global organizations. What can we do in country A to leverage on country B? Tax is one form of stimulus, and changes in tax rates and due dates can help companies to, at this point, conserve their cash position and therefore have an opportunity to plan for the future. Businesses need to look at what central banks are doing. Are they cutting interest rates? Are they extending grants and loans to the business? So let's not just look inwards into the operations of the business. What can I do to survive? It's also the time to look outwards, look out of the window and see what the opportunities are for the business from a continuity perspective. Finance and liquidity. This is a time businesses should review the cash flow and any foreign, because those particular areas, foreign exchange has taken a huge hit. But this is a time to sit and really critically review the current cash situation for organizations. We need to prepare a list of our key suppliers and critical payments. Some payments need to be done immediately, some can be deferred, but it will take some level of critical thought process for us to arrive at that. But we can't just limit our considerations to just the organization. Let's look at suppliers, let's look at payments. What do we need to do now? What can we do or defer till later? We need to see where cash can be conserved, and if possible, orders of business from suppliers that would not make critical sense at this point can be delayed. It can be deferred. And we need to, focus on securing what stimulus packages might be available in a particular country. And for organizations working in multiple locations, this is also a time to see, like I said, what is happening in one country that we can leverage on for another country. That there are some implications for the strategy as well of the business as well as the brand. Some implications. Now, given the crisis situation, how is your brand going to be perceived? Are you just that organization who still wants to sell? By all means. We just want to move our operations from physical operations to online operations, customers. Some organizations are offering services right now at discounts or for free, and that's for us to balance commercial continuity with community concern. I see so many organizations in my part of the world who are involved in helping the poor of the poor to survive through this crisis. It's not just about selling. It's not just about business continuity. Brand perception will be important for this period, and how you make people feel now, they will not forget. Whatever you say, they may forget, but how you make them feel, they will not forget. So it's important that what the brand is communicating at this point is more around community concern balanced with commercial continuity. Maybe there's a way for businesses to switch to new ways of selling. Just move from, identify new routes to market. Everything is online right now. School is online, gym is online, business is online, everything is online. So can we move the business? Can we find new routes to market for business survival? And agility is so critical. This is not the time to deal around bureaucracy, long hours of decision making. No, this is the time to stay close to customers, stay close to them, not just from a product, profit margin, revenue perspective, but also their well-being. Understand how behavior is changing. Understand that those behaviors might just be the new normal, and we're not going to go back to the old scenario. So agility is quite critical, driven by data, of course. So what's the road to recovery looking like from my perspective? And this is taken from some sort of insights from Deloitte. What we need to do is ask some critical questions around revenue, profitability, assets, liquidity, digital transformation, the workforce itself and the operating structure, as well as how to manage our stakeholder expectations, engage our minds. From a revenue perspective, will be things around, should we engage customers for acquisition or maintenance? What is our strategy around revenue and growth going to be like? What customer behavioral changes are likely to be permanent? And I promise you, there's so many behavioral patterns that have come to stay. Things will not go back to business as usual. Should we manage for profit or should we manage for resilience, for business continuity at this point? Should we operate for cash or should we operate for profit? Some businesses will say cash is king, hold your cash, right? How can we move faster towards digital transformation? I mean, this is probably a question that is about 3-4 weeks too late. If there is any organization that is not moving very, very fast towards digital transformation, that business is likely to become a dinosaur in another couple of days. How has the social contract with workers changed? The social contract with workers has changed. By the time we get back to the workplaces, it's not going to be the same thing. I know some individuals who will say, hey, I can't work with you full-time, 8 to 5, Monday to Friday anymore. I just want to give you 3 days of my week. And I want to do something else for myself or with family or another job. The social contract will change. How are we going to be able to manage the operating structures and alliances to deliver the plan from a workforce perspective? And lastly, how have social and institutional expectations changed? Those are being impacted directly by the situation that we are right now. And it is the business of the business to find or to situate itself amongst the expectations and possibly remodel its business operations so that expectations can be delivered. The recovery journey, this is how I see it. I think it's going to be from the way we respond right now. The second thing is to identify and navigate the uncertainties and implications. That's number 2. Number 1, have a change in our mindset. Number 2, identify and navigate the uncertainties and the implications. Number 3, trust is going to be very, very important. Some organizations build the operations of the workforce around clock in at 8, clock out at 5. I can see Yemi is working. I can see Catherine is working. I can see Lillian is working. You know, we build the organizations around such structures. But now, I don't know where Lillian is, but she's working. I don't know where Catherine is. So trust is going to be a very, very important element as what will lead us to quick recovery. It's going to become a catalyst to recovery. Employees will need to trust themselves. Line managers will need to trust their direct reports. The workforce will need to trust leadership. Otherwise, recovery will be slower. The thing is to define the destination. So really, what's the new destination going to be like? The business strategy that we had in January or October, November last year, planning for 2020, that has changed. That has totally changed. It's a new ball game. We need to redefine the destination and launch the recovery framework for the business. Otherwise, we are still stuck in the rut of what's going on, what's going to happen and all that, then we're not going to be able to move. So we need to move from a state of responding now to the point where we need to thrive. Maybe not in the present situation of the crisis from an organizational perspective, but at least let's get ready to quickly go through the curve, respond, identify the issues, embed trust in the organization, define the destination, and then let's thrive again. At this point, I would just say that Martin should take over, and then if we have questions for members of the panel, then we can take those questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So, Yemi, thank you very much. There was a poll that you had for the last of completing the session. I think what I'll do is I'll launch the poll, and then we can have people responding to it as we're nearly closing. Yeah, so
Yep.
how comfortable are you with your company's recovery plan? Very comfortable, somewhat comfortable, not at all comfortable. Okay. Okay. So far we have 100 people taking the poll out of 192.
Wow.
Okay, 113. I'm closing at exactly 1 minute. Let's see. Okay. Let me share the results.
Okay.
And that's how things look like. Yeah. 22% are very comfortable, somewhat comfortable, 61%, 18% not comfortable at all.
Interesting.
Okay. So we want to thank everyone who's been with us for today's session. Today's session was 1 hour, 30 minutes. We're still on it. Now, for any questions, I'd like to post my email address. You can share them with we can share the questions with us. Anybody with a burning question, you can post it on the chat and we can respond to it. Maybe just now. Okay. 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 And then I would like to invite our very good friend to give a vote of thanks. Jareen, I'd like to welcome you to give a vote of thanks, and then I can close this session.
Oh, thank you, Martin. Thank you, Martin. Wow, it's been 5 wonderful days of just learning, explosive sharing. And yes, our minds have been blown right from the strategy session with Charles and Agnes. Thank you so much for those very informative tidbits that you gave us. We came into 2 days of learning and development. Ademola, Kate, Susan, and Yemi, we cannot thank you enough on behalf of all the people that have attended these sessions. For performance management, Kate, you took 2 hats, taking us through the learning and development and then on to performance management together with May, Lillian again, and Yemi today. It's been great. It's been awesome. We all feel, and I want to believe I speak on behalf of all the participants, we feel very empowered to now move on and take up the new normal in our workplaces, in our businesses. Martin, thank you so much for your just bringing us up together and making sure that everything works like clockwork. It's been great. To my fellow participants, we have drunk from a well of over 300 years of cumulative experience from all the presenters. And we cannot just thank you enough for all this. So thank you. Looking forward to what you have in store for us next week. It's been a great session. On behalf of everybody, I want to thank you very sincerely. Martin?
Thank you very much, Jerry. Now, quick one question. How many people would like to see more of this session? You can type yes on chat so that we know. Yeah. Oh, great. Great. Okay. I think it's you guys asking us to continue with this. So we had pre-thought about this. So next week, we'll have Professor Zim from South Africa. We'll also have one lady from Nigeria, Taiwo. We will have Felicia from Tanzania, and we'll continue bringing you more speakers. We might slow down after the first ones, the next week's sessions. So next week, we're planning for the 28th, 29th, and the 5th. Everybody who's registered will share content on email plus the invitation, and we hope that you'll be able to join us. We shared an evaluation so that we can get a feel of the topics people want to learn about. We would like this to be participant-driven learning. So if you can fill out that evaluation form, we will be sending it again today and also the link to the video, to the ready videos. You can have a listen again. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone very much. And if you can, join us again next week. Thank you very much for everyone. And feel free to shoot an email to my email, martin@iPerformanceAfrica.com. To all the presenters, we'd like to thank you very much, very much. Without you guys, this would just have been a thought. So it's actually been a great working with you guys, and we hope we will get to do much more sessions together. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great day for the day. And see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. See you next week, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, and bye, everyone.